John's car averages 24.3 miles per gallon in the city and 8.2 more miles per gallon on the highway. Now, the reason why you burn a little bit less or a little bit more gas in the city is because you have to stop at so many red lights, you have to stop and start, whereas if you're on the highway, you're just going the whole time. You're not stopping, you're not having to restart your car and all that. And let's pay close attention to what the question is asking us. At that rate, how many gallons of gas will John's car use on a 260-mile highway trip? Well, we know that we're looking for highway trip. What does he get in the city? 24.3 miles. What does he get on the highway? 8.2 miles more than this. So we'd add 8.2 here, making this 5. 4 plus 8 is 12. Carry the 1, making that 32.5 miles per gallon. And this is something you're going to start to see a lot more of as you get older, because you're going to be, more than likely, you're going to want a more fuel-efficient car. Well, it says, at that rate, how many gallons of gas will John's car use on a 260-mile highway trip? Well, if we're saying that we're getting 32.5 miles per gallon, we need to figure out how many gallons we're going to be burning, so we would divide 32.5 into 260. Well, we can't divide by 32.5, so we have to move the decimal place over. Well, if we move it over here, we have to move it over here from 260 to 2600. Okay? And we may have to do some hole in the paper problems here, because I may have to divide this in here several times. This is a pretty big one, but I think this is going to go in here about 8 times without going over. 8 times 5 is 40. Carry the 4. 8 times 2 is 16, plus 4 is 20. Carry the 2. 8 times 3 is 24, plus 2 is 26. It looks like I have a perfect number here, 8. So it's going to take me 8 gallons. What is the value of the expression below? All we do is figure out what the value inside here is, because this is absolute value of all this stuff. So we just say negative 12 plus 4. Same signs, add and keep. Different signs, we're going to subtract. So we're going to say 12 minus 4 is 8. Take the sign of the furthest number, which is negative 12, making that negative 8. But remember, it's the absolute value of negative 8. Now, the absolute value of negative 8 is just how far that number is from 0, which is 8. So the answer is 8. I'm going to let you guys do 28 on your own. All you're doing is putting these in order from the least to greatest. I'm sorry, from the lowest temperature to the highest temperature. 29. Which of the following expressions is not equivalent? Not equivalent to negative 10. Well, in order to do this, we have to work all these out. So let's work the first one out. Negative 2 minus 8. We need to change that to an addition problem using keep, change, flip. So negative 2 plus a negative 8. Same signs, add and keep. Well, we got the same signs there, so we're going to add 2 and 8, making that 10. And keep the sign. So that's negative 10. And remember, what the question is asking us is which of the following is not equivalent to negative 10. So we can get rid of A because it is negative 10. Well, all this is asking us to do here is saying the opposite of, or multiply whatever happens inside the parentheses by a negative 1. Well, that means negative 2 plus 8 is 10, making that negative 10. Okay, and remember, they're asking us which is not equivalent. There we go. Now, one thing you could do to shortcut this, the absolute value, unless there's a negative sign out in front of it, like we have here, absolute value will always, always, always be positive, unless you see a minus sign out in front. So regardless of what is in here, you know it's going to be positive. Therefore, the answer is C. because the absolute value of what's inside here, even though it is negative 10, the absolute value of negative 10 is actually 10. And this satisfies it's not equivalent to negative 10. And finally, a smoothie recipe calls for 2/3 cup of juice per serving. How many cups of juice are needed to make 4 servings of this smoothie? Well, all we need to do, if we know that a smoothie recipe calls for 2/3 cup of this juice, and we're going to make 4 servings, all we have to do is multiply 4 times 2/3. Well, we need to multiply fractions. Well, what's the equivalent fraction of 4? It's 4/1 times 2/3. We don't have to find a least common denominator here because we're multiplying. All we do is multiply straight across, making this 8/3. But we're not done. We've got to change this to a mixed number. 8 goes in the house, 3 goes on the outside. 3 into 8 without going over 2 times. A remainder of 2. Therefore, our answer is 2 and 2/3.